All right, I'm here with,
Kevin Ortel.
and then what do you do for work?
I'm a dentist.
I see you've been a dentist for a long time. What is the company called?
It's Kevin Ortel, DDS PLC. I've owned my practice since 2003. I've been practicing dentistry for 28 years.
Okay, that's awesome. So in this second question, I'm gonna have you rate some things really quick, but I'm gonna ask you the question first, give me an answer, and then we'll come back to those questions I have for you. So consider your greatest career achievement in that role. Provide details including the time period, the persons, products, services involved. What management principles or strategies did you use that you would help to employ this effective organizational outcome? And then what do you consider this achievement to be so impactful?
25 years into my practice of dentistry, I decided to go into facial aesthetics. So I was teaching it all around the country, and the laws within Arizona, the state that I practice in, did not have laws that were effectively allowing dentists to provide that care legally, medical legally in the state of Arizona. There was a gray area. And so what that means, if there was something that went awry, your malpractice may not cover it. So I took it upon myself with the Arizona Dental Board to go to the Arizona House of Representatives, and I spoke in front of those representatives, and it went on to the Senate and on to the governor, and I helped get the single-handedly help get the laws passed in Arizona so that dentists can provide facial aesthetics.
Okay. And then I'm just gonna have you quickly rate some things 1 through 5. We'll do it quick. How about listening?
Listening is imperative on what I do. I have to listen to understand my patient care, so that's a five.
Okay. Empathy,
I think a good dentist has to be able to feel the emotions of the patient, so empathy is huge. So that's a five as well.
healing,
Healing is very important because what I provide, I want to make sure is comfortable to the patient. So that's probably a four.
awareness,
Awareness is extremely important when you own your own business on top of providing. So if I was a dentist that was working for someone else, I just have to be aware of my patient, but I have to be aware of all my employees, all my patients. So a five.
persuasion.
Persuasion is something that I don't try and persuade people into care, but I do have to have make them understand it. So that's probably a two.
Conceptualization,
Five. I have to be able to visualize the treatment that I do.
foresight,
Foresight and conceptualization, in my opinion, are pretty synonymous with one another. So I'm going to say five on that.
and then we have stewardship, commitment to people, and then building community.
Stewardship is about providing service. So as a steward of dentistry, I would say that I'm at four,
Okay. And then commitment to people.
five. I mean, it's very important that I'm committed to the process of what I'm doing because then you kind of become um, more valuable and seen more as an asset in the community.
Okay. And then finally, building community.
Community is important. It's how I feed my business. So if that's a five.
All right. And then for our next question, sorry for the repeated questions. We had something come up, but for number 3, we have consider a significant challenge, preferably one with an ethical dilemma you previously faced in that role. How did you handle it, and what was the outcome? Provide some details like people, products, services, competition, etc.
Yeah, I usually am a very conservative dentist, and I usually try and provide care that is going to be the least expensive to get the most result. But I did have an elderly lady who I've been treating for over 20 years that was sort of towards her end of life, and she always wanted to have nice teeth. And I had tried to fix her teeth on multiple occasions, but she had multiple falls. She had all sorts of physical disabilities. And she said, I just don't want to be in a casket with bad teeth. And so offered to make her a partial. I offered to make her something that's less expensive. But she goes, I want my teeth to look beautiful. So we made a bridge of porcelain where all her teeth looked like brand new. And it was something different than what I would normally do for someone that age. But she was so ecstatic, so happy. The case went extremely well. And the ethical dilemma for me was just sort of changing my own perspective on what it was that I do versus what she wanted, and we discussed it at length with each other and with her husband to try and figure out what would be the best course of action. And in the end, the case went really well.
Okay. So we're gonna do the same thing that we did last time, that 1 through 5 really quickly. And I'll just go right through it. So we have listening.
Listening in that scenario was a five.
Okay. Empathy,
Well, empathy was the reason why I changed my whole perspective. So that's a five.
healing,
Healing was probably not as important because it wasn't as invasive. It's more mostly just reconstruction. So that's probably like a four.
okay. Awareness,
Awareness was a five. I mean, I had to be completely in tune with everything that we were doing because there were some changes that happened along the way.
persuasion,
In this situation, I was not persuasive. I mean, she was more persuasive in what she wanted, so I'll put that down as a two.
conceptualization.
Five. I had to explain to her what I could possibly do for her.
Yeah. And then foresight.
Five.
Those kind of play hand in hand. Stewardship.
Stewardship, I mean, I was a servant to this situation. So, although it was her idea, I had to basically carve the path, create the appointments, create the awareness. So, I'd put that as a four.
Okay. And then we have commitment to growth of people and then interest in the community.
In this scenario, commitment to I mean, for her, it was just basically her own growth and her own mental perspective on her health. And so I'd say that it wasn't important for the community, but for her, I'd put that as a three,
Three. And then growth of people.
four.
All right. And then that should be it for that question. All right, so for our next question, we have what was the mission, vision, or strategy of your organization, and how were they accomplished, and how essential is the entrepreneurship mindset for achieving this mission, vision? You can use some strategies or whatever worked for you in your organization.
Well, the mission and vision initially, when I started my practice, I got married and started my practice in the same month. So it was a big that we did. Both of us were unemployed when we went and got married. So we were both all in on this practice. And it was a joint venture. So we wanted to create a very family centered environment where people in the local community could feel like they're getting treated ethically, with high quality care at the time and still now today, corporate dentistry, which is a very focused on production and not focused on personal relationships with the providers because they're owned by people who are not necessarily the dentist treating them. It's more of a factory. So we want to differentiate ourselves and be a boutique practice where we could deliver high quality, affordable dentistry and to know every patient personally. And I think I've done that in that time.
Okay, awesome. So for this next part, I'm gonna have you rate things 1 through 5, and you can kind of relate it back to how you started with your family and all that, but whatever works for you. So it's gonna be the need to achieve.
The need to achieve is a five. I mean, from the entrepreneurial perspective, I was going out this all by myself. I had no help. So we were working as a team to create this from scratch. I was in huge financial deficit to buy this practice. So my monthly payment for this was over $11,000 a month just to break even on top of all the other bills that I had. So it was a lot, and I had to be aggressive. I had to be assertive, and yeah, staying the course every single day and grabbing at it was imperative.
100%. Openness to experience.
Openness to experience. So I was fortunate in those early years to have a couple people that I truly felt were a little bit like mentors. Not so much in the day-to-day business minded, but just a lot of how they went about the success of family, their mindset on work-life balance and things like that. They gave me some insight to make sure I kept my head on straight and didn't overwork myself, but maintain the focus on being productive and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean that's a four or five as well.
Which one?
Five.
5. All right. And then next we have innovative and creative ability.
So I did not have the money to hire outside sources to be creative. And so I designed my own logo on multiple occasions and brought them to designers after I hand sketched them and had business cards and logos and stuff made from designs that I created myself. Lately, I've been doing them on my own through computer stuff. So I love to be
What app do
creative.
you use?
I use a lot of different apps. Sometimes I use small apps where you can do logos with AI. Other times I actually hand sketch them with pencil and paper, and then I would go to my computer and do it on like Pages and stuff like that, like on Apple. So I would try and create the creativity as far as what is a conceptual design I want the outside world, my community to see as my business. And then there's the creativity of how can I develop within my practice to differentiate myself. So the aesthetic side stuff that I've talked to you before is and that creativity, that's huge. I mean, that's me trying to completely differentiate myself from any other provider in the whole state of Arizona.
Okay. And what would you put that 1 through 5?
Five. I mean, I know that we're dealing with fives and stuff, but when you're an entrepreneur, you're going to realize that your success is built off of your fortitude of how you want to do things. And I am the reason why my business will sink or swim. So I have to stay in tune the whole time.
Funny you said that because I just completed my own logo a couple weeks ago. So
Nice.
yeah. And then risk propensity.
The risk of my business is twofold. So there's the risk of the financial risk. In other words, I don't produce enough to make my overhead, my budget. I have to make changes either within my practice, my employees, or something like that. The other risk that I have is not is the vulnerability that I'm licensed. So my business requires a medical license, and at any time, my work can be put under scrutiny from a patient who is dissatisfied either because they didn't want to pay for something, maybe totally unrelated to my work at all, or maybe I do something and doesn't go as well as I want it to go. I have malpractice insurance, but I also have an agency that oversees all dentists in Arizona. So when I told you that I wanted to create something that's predictable, ethical, and always has a good outcome. Those ideals that I put in place from day one have allowed me to practice for 21 years with none of that stuff affecting me. But I work every day to make sure that it doesn't affect who I am as a person. So it's very important.
I
So
bet.
five,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we have three more. The next one's gonna be proactivity and work ethic.
Work ethics come from a young age with me. I had two working parents, so I was very independent. So I've always had to be self-sufficient. So I think work ethic had to mostly be turned down a little bit because sometimes I would work so much that I lose sight on some of the other things that were very important in my life. So I think finding that work balance was very important. So work ethic is what was the second part of that? Work ethic and what?
Proactivity.
To be proactive. I think sometimes the proactive part, I'd say work productivity is five, but the proactive part for me is probably a little less because sometimes I get so stuck in swimming in what I'm doing and my head feels like I can't get above water that I have ideas and things I want to do down the road, but I don't get to them in time. So I think it's kind of like being a student like yourself where you want to get ahead in your studies, but you all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, I have a test next week and I didn't do quite that's kind of how I feel a lot as a business owner. Is I wish I had one more day in the week to be creative, to be proactive, and I don't have that time. And so I'd say that's probably like a three.
So we'll just go happy medium, go four.
Yep.
Entrepreneurial self-efficiency, which you kind of just talked about earlier with
Yeah.
that propensity.
Yeah, I'd say that rather than repeat myself, I'll say that's a five.
And then an internal locus of control.
Can you define what that means?
Just kind of what you have to do to have your practice under organization and what makes you get going all the time and kind of how you organize yourself.
So I think it comes initially from me as you start to develop your business and entrepreneurial. Most of it's going to be from you, maybe a close business partner, maybe you have a financial investor or someone like that, but they're going to want to see their investment have return. Well, all that is me, right? I'm the financial investor. The bank loaned me money. All that's paid off now. So everything is on my back. So there's no one to go to in that regard. But to do the day-to-day modalities, you start to get so big that you cannot do everything yourself. So you have to learn to delegate. Learning to delegate and offload what you've done initially is very, very hard because you're so used to doing it yourself. So I have someone in my practice who's my office manager, and I come in every morning and I give her three or four things I want her to do that day. And as the day goes along, she goes, "Okay, I've done this one, I've done this one, this one." So it allows me to know that the things I don't have time for are being done. And then there's other modalities, there's other things that I have to offload to my assistant and or my other front office person, maybe my hygienist. So I have four employees that I have to delegate workload that I can't get to. And it's easier just to go and try and do it myself, but I just don't have enough people. So I have to learn to offload and delegate, and that is very important in dentistry. It's a small team, so that's a five.
Yeah, that internal locus control is just basically saying you don't believe in luck, and it's kind of just how your factors in everyday life work. So,
No, there's I don't think there's any luck in what I do. It's grit, sweat, and tears.
yep. Okay, so for our next question, it's gonna be our last one. But basically, apart from servant leadership, um, with your entrepreneurial mindset that we also kind of talked about earlier too, just identify some significant lessons or factors, attributes that contributed to your success, and what I should avoid for futures, and what you kind of had to avoid in the past. So,
Well, I think the thing is, I'd like you to sit down um, as a future business person, and say, what are the things that I want to accomplish? And I want there to be a line for you or any young business person, say, what are the personal things you want to accomplish? And what are the professional things you want to accomplish? Sometimes those lines get blurred, um, and you sacrifice one for the other. For example, in the early years, if you have a young family, you're going to probably not be as present as you're building your business. And then as you start to develop the time to spend time with your family as your employees or the people you've delegated things, as some of that workload gets lessened because it's been diversified, then you have more time to spend time. For me, it was coaching my kids. It was being available at night. The first years I was just coming home exhausted. Just I had young babies and I just was pooped. So just having time to spend a little bit of time with them, it was. But if your goal is to make a lot of money, you can go out and make a lot of money. But I know a lot of people who are very wealthy, who are lonely, and who are successful from the outside, but internally they haven't lived a rich life. So I'm not as financially successful as I probably wanted to be, but I feel like I have learned so many valuable lessons of integrity, of balance, of making sure that I am there for the people that need me and the people that I love. And I find that that richness is what I set out because my three goals were to be a dad, to be a husband, and to be a soccer coach. And do those are my personal things. I wanted to be all that. I wanted to have all those hats, and I did them all. I also wanted to own my own successful business practice, which I feel I have. So at this point in my life, it's changing for things, and experiences have sort of like there's been some crossroads that path, but if I had jeopardized integrity early on, I wouldn't have stayed the course that I'm on. I would have jumped ship and maybe sold out and done a corporate thing, and all of a sudden now I'm working for someone else, just wanting to make a lot of money, but I don't feel like it's got my own name. I don't feel like I have the integrity and the passion. And you were asking me earlier, like, what was my goal set in the beginning? What was the brand that I wanted to create? That has been completely bound into the fabric of what I do, but there's been some costs along the way, personal costs, financial costs, things like that. But as long as you maintain integrity, as long as you have fortitude in your business mind, if you're going to be an entrepreneurial, if you want to own more businesses, then you need to get one of them rocking and rolling. Then you take that financial leverage and you create another one, but you have to be open to mistakes. You might have two of them that fail and one of them that blows up and makes you uber successful, only to diversify into a couple more that maybe are moderately successful. So I think true entrepreneurs, if you look at people like Elon Musk, or even you go back in history with like Abraham Lincoln, all the he had so many failures only to be remembered as one of the most successful human beings of mankind to create a long legacy. So your legacy of what you want to be as a person may differentiate who you want to be as a businessman. But if you can take those two modalities and create a strong personal man of integrity as well as a strong business owner of integrity, everyone will want to be a part of you on both sides of the coin. I think that's my goal.
So you're basically saying just relate to them rather than think of them as a business object.
Well, it depends on what if you're selling a bunch of plastic discs that are important to every single car that's out there, right? You're not having, the world's not knowing you as the plastic disc guy, right? You're just a successful business guy that owns parts. Now, if you have something that people relate to, if it's a product that brings them joy, satisfaction, or otherwise, or whether it's a beverage or whether it's, you know, um, I think you have an interest in firearms and things like that. If you have something that people can look at and identify as yours, then you have brand recognition, and they will start to see that with you in the same light. And so identifying and creating something that you can identify with and be proud of as the business entity, I think is important. So it's not just, I mean, I don't know if I'm getting off track, but it's learning how to balance your professional integrity with your personal integrity and making sure that you don't lose sight of either one or the both of your sides. And too many people and a lot of people in business do that. There's a lot of really successful businessmen that have gone through personal tragedy as they have found a lack of time for their family, or there's people who their businesses suffer because maybe a personal tragedy happens and they can't attend to their business as much as they wanted to. So these ebb and flows of business and personal happen, and you have to learn how to balance them.
I think that's a great answer to this question. So I
Thank
think
you.
you're pretty good in that. But those are all my questions, and I really appreciate you having the time to speak with me and help me out on my journey.
Fantastic. I'm here even afterwards, right?
Yeah.
All
Thank you.
right, man.